So much. Thank you, Grid 110. I'm very excited to be here today. It's Thursday. Hopefully, you guys are staying nice and warm. I've been hearing the cold front is coming in at 6 o'clock. So, if you guys are going to go out now after this workshop. With that, my name is Roberto Martinez. You can call me Robert for those of us who can't roll our R's. I'm very excited to be here today. I know there's some of us who are still trying to get in, and I'm pretty sure they're being let in. I'll let Elizabeth take over from there. I'm going to remove myself from that list. Uh, what would be very helpful to start off with, and I don't know if Elizabeth can help me with this, is just humanizing this particular workshop by making it as real as possible for you guys. I received some questions already that I included into the presentation to answer those questions. But if you could tell me a little bit about your nonprofit, for-profit, startup, incubator, accelerator, your amazing $1 billion idea that we all want to be part of, just ping it on the chat function just so I could draw from that and I could get a better idea of where my audience is coming from, and I could kind of create a more of a humanized process here when it comes to that. You can reach me at Roberto Mar. You can reach me on LinkedIn. You're more than happy to follow you and follow each other. Why am I in front of you? What do I know? Why should you care? Let's start with why. Isn't that Simon Sinek's famous quote, famous book? Well, I am a Google digital coach. I've been doing this for Google for the past 3 years. I started because I was just like you. I had an idea. I loved the idea. I quit my job. I became an entrepreneur. And I invested heavily into my community of color here in Los Angeles because I wanted to understand how do I help small business scale. I went through schooling. I realized maybe I don't need schooling as much as a great idea and hard work. And so from that work that I did historically within the city of LA, helping small businesses scale with marketing and in digital marketing, I was presenting in Stanford, letting people know that, hey, here's how we scale small business. Here's how we scale startups. And there was a Google rep there that said, hey, we love what you're saying. We love what you're teaching us. Why don't you do this for all our businesses across the United States and help them understand how to use Google tools? Today's workshop is going to revolve all around how to make you rich using insights. So obviously we all know data is king. We tell stories with numbers. How do we use Google Analytics to help drive home the goals that we have for our business? And so Unilever's chairman said it best, data makes your briefcase heavy, but insights make you rich. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means on your business, on your front, and what that means according to Google. So as Elizabeth said, we're going to start off rocking and rolling with a very intro level, and then we're going to go down and kind of dive a little bit deeper and get into some of the weeds here when it comes to setting up events, setting up goals, tracking mechanisms, learning the new updates that the Google Analytics team has provided us when it comes to Google Analytics itself. But first, with some insights, we need to define some words. What is an insight, right? So for those of us who've done data analytics and taken courses, it's one of the bane of my existence. I thought I was going to fail that class when I was in graduate school, but it's very important to understand what is an insight. So an insight is novel, credible, and actionable. The example I love using is the Old Spice commercial. If you guys remember the Old Spice Hello Ladies commercial, where the guy's riding on the horse, diamonds appear. The question you should be asking is, why is a man promoting a body wash to women, right? This is a male product, and they're using this product, and instead of talking to the man, they're talking to the woman. They're saying, hello, ladies. Would you want your man to smell like me, look like me, walk like me? And what the companies, the CPG company realized, the Procter & Gamble realizes, yes, this product is for men, but 70% of the people doing the shopping are women. So why are we targeting men when we should be targeting women? And the light went off. That's something novel. It's something credible that the data told them, and it's something actionable where they could create a marketing campaign specifically targeting women. And so that's what we want you to understand. Who's coming into our website? Who's coming into our marketing channels? What are they doing there? And can we learn from that to take an action that helps us drive results? So I love the companies here. Jewelry company inspired. I love it. Greetings from Nila. Please tell me what your company is all about. CEO of GW Apps and B2B SaaS startup. Love it. Google partner, even better. Fantastic. So how do we use data? Again, just some bare essentials here when it comes to defining what we mean. A data is a stat or a fact. In this room, there is 40% men, 60% women, or vice versa. That is a data point. And my data analyst professor would say a data point does not make a data set, no matter how much you believe in that. I love that because it's just data points. What we need to get to is a data set that helps us understand the analytics of it, which is patterns and trends. Now, if Elizabeth hosts every month one webinar, and every month we see that number hold 40 to 60, then that becomes a pattern or a trend. And she could take that number and then go to partners and say, hey, 60% of our audience is women, 40% of our audience is men. We've seen this across 10 different webinars. It holds. If you're targeting women, then you should be focusing on our particular webinar. And that's the action she took. That's the insight she gleaned from that data point and data set to make an actionable, valuable deliverable that helps her drive a result that she wants as a program manager for Grid 110. Same thing with you guys. We're going to dive into your website. We're going to figure out what the heck is the data telling you and how to make smart, informed business decisions. So the first thing we want to do is just provide you a very basic introduction to Google Analytics, finding out how to set up your reporting, interpreting those reportings, and then using Google Analytics and other tools. And we're going to dive into the segmentation. We're going to dive into the goals because that's something that you guys have spoken about and said you guys wanted. And we have more people talking about their company. Great apparel manufacturer, apparel design, concept to completion. I love that. You're empowering everyone to become their own fashion designer. Freelance communications and marketing advisor, always great. We need more of marketers in the marketplace. Prior experience working in transportation infrastructure, fantastic. Men's resort apparel brand, ooh, I like that. I'm ready to go to a resort. USC, IT group, fantastic. Okay, folks. So a note about Google Analytics. If you guys have Google Analytics already, we're changing our format. We launched Google Analytics to a new version. This allows you for a lot more data insights. It gives you a certain amount of capability when it comes to downloading apps, downloading certain features that in the past weren't allowed to. There's two functionalities there. They have two different names when it comes to setting up your Google Analytics. Set up universal. They're going to give you an option. They're going to bury it when you set it up, and they're going to ask you, would you like to set up Google Analytics? Let's assume no one in this room has set up Google Analytics. That's perfectly fine. When you are setting it up, they're going to give you an option. What kind of Google Analytics do you want? Do you want the newer version, or do you want the universal? I will tell you, for my money, start with the universal. Why is that? Because it gives you, it's the Ferrari, right? It's all the bells and whistles are there. The newer version is more segmented, if you will, with less of the features. I'd rather bring you the mountain than you carve that mountain into a hill. So you want to start off and set up your Google Analytics with Universal. Very important. And you could always toggle between the two, or you could create two different channels and copies of your analytics traffic. And again, I'm getting into the weeds here, but in essence, you could create as many copies of your traffic, of your Google data that's coming in the event that you want to test certain things out, you want to change the goals, you want to change the segment. We'll get to that in a little bit. All right, so let's talk about analytics. What is Google Analytics? It's a free software that Google gives any and everyone that wants it. Doesn't cost you a dime. All it costs you is for you to have your Gmail account. So you have your Gmail account, you have a website, you use your Gmail account to set up your Google Analytics account, you connect your Google Analytics account with your website account. How do you do that, Rob? Great question. Very easy. You connect the back end, and I'm gonna walk you through that process and they'll give you what's called a Google Analytics Universal ID, which is a short set of numbers, or the script. For those of us who are in coding, we can take that script and dump it into our page if we're using HTML. If we have a CRM website like a WordPress, Shopify, Wix, Squarespace, you could just take the universal tracking ID and drop those 7-letter and drop them into a segment, a section within your website settings where it allows you to connect. And then within an hour, I think it's actually faster now. It's like 5-7 minutes. You'll start getting traffic and seeing the traffic. Now we can't go retroactively. We can't go back in the past and see the traffic, but moving forward, you can definitely do that. So what do we figure out with Google Analytics? What does it help you do? Helps you learn what people are searching for to find your website, the demographics of your audience, understand the different individuals and what the content on your website is actually doing. We all heard the expression content is king. We want to make sure we understand if the content, the material we're talking about on the website is actually driving the results that you want. And then probably for me, the most important component of Google Analytics is channels. And what does this mean? This just means marketing channels. You got social media channels, and those are broken down into, I don't know how many social medias, 5, 7, 10, depending on what you guys want. You have email marketing. You have paid ads, both on social and on Google. You have blogs. You have third-party websites that might reference you. All those different places online can technically drive traffic to your website, which is fantastic. But which channel is the best channel for you as a business? Which channel is converting and driving the business results that you want at the highest rate possible? All important things to figure out. And we'll talk about that. So this is how we get started. As I was mentioning a little bit earlier, we want to set up your property. You go to Google Analytics, you start it up for free. You go in there, you see the home page, very straightforward. This is your dashboard. I'll tell you users, and when you talk about revenue, if you're actually a product selling company, what you want to think through is, are they selling and am I selling on my website? It will automatically integrate this. Now, there's obviously Shopify and other third-party CRM platforms that are websites that tell you this information, but Google will also do this information automatically without you needing to do anything. Now, if you're a service, you have to put in that data manually. And within setting up Google Analytics, I'll give you an option selecting the industry and then benchmarking your traffic to your industry's traffic. So you'll have a better point of reference if you're keeping in on pace with other industry leaders in your marketplace. One question I always get asked is about bounce rate. Bounce rate, and I'll answer it now. A bounce rate simply means you have 10 people coming into your website, 5 people left. That means you have a 50% bounce rate. And all that means is that someone went into your website and didn't take any action. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? That is a terrible thing. We want as many people clicking and touching your website as possible, because on websites, clicks are currency, and we want to make sure they're taking the actions that we want them to take. Now, a good bounce rate is 45%. A great bounce rate is 35%. On average, you want to be between 40 to 50%, and you'll know that the content and the material that you have on your website is doing what it's intended to do, which is engaging the audience that lands on your website. So finding reports. Let's talk about Eva and Ricky here. And they're working the Google store. They want to sell t-shirts. They want to understand how to sell better. Yeah, Elizabeth, thank you for plugging that in. Any and all questions are welcomed. We want you guys to be able to be engaged. So, right, so these individuals are selling shirts, Google shirts on their website, and they want to make sure that people are buying it. And they have these gut instincts, right? They're like, you know what? We need to drive more sales to end the quarter on a high note. Let's discount our rates. That's one way, a surefire way to do it. The other one is, hey, you know what? I think based on my gut instinct and who I'm seeing in the stores and who I'm seeing around campus, that on average, we're selling to people who are women, ages between 35 and 44. So maybe we should be targeting those people. And that's his intuition or their intuition. Well, That's great that they have those intuitions, but we want to make sure that they're using the data that Google's providing them to make smart business decisions. And so we want to outline goals. We're not going to touch too much on SMART goals. You guys, I mean, most of us have heard SMART goals: specific, measurable, actionable, tangible, uh, and was it SMART and tangible? Yeah. You want to ask the right question. And those two indicators are going to help you land on your goal. And one thing they want to ask themselves is, how do we lower our abandoned cart? So most of us who've used third-party platforms, we go online and we go to Amazon, or we go to Macy's, we go to Nike, we go to uh, Apple, for example. We might want to buy that product. We add it to our cart, but then we don't buy it. They're seeing a 60% abandonment rate and they want to lower that. So great. How do you lower it? Well, we need to make sure we understand how to assign goals to our different websites. And that's the first step that you, as a business owner for your website, want to do. Want to define your goals, because we want to know what we're aiming at. And the first thing you want to think through is, what kind of goals do you want? If you're a business to business, you might want leads. If you're a product, might want clicks. If you're a consultant, like the marketing individual on the chat, what was your name, friend? I forget. Crystal. Crystal. So Crystal was mentioning she does marketing advisory. She might want appointments. She might want people to download her case studies, because that way she'll be able to see who the heck is learning from her, wants to engage with her, and wants to have a better understanding. Okay, so Karen has a great question. We'll definitely answer that later on in the presentation at the 10 end. So we're going to do 20 minutes on the basic stuff, 20 minutes on the more difficult stuff, and then 20 minutes on Q&A. Karen, please hold that conversation. I'll be more than happy to answer that. Karen's question is very specific, and it's more around WordPress Master Insights and Google AdSense, which we'll be more than happy to address a little bit later. So these are the kind of questions I want you guys to think through. Who is your audience? Hopefully you guys have customer personas already built out, which I'm sure you do. Greater 110 does an amazing job training you guys. Engage. How many people are falling into our website and converting? How many people are sticking around? Are they clicking, and are they sustainable? Are they coming back? So let's talk about the reach question. What are people searching for when they look for us, right? When they look for us, what's our company, and what are the keywords and key phrases that they're typing on the Google search engine to find us? What is the largest search engine in the world? Google. What's the second largest search engine in the world? YouTube. So we want to make sure we know those keywords, and those keywords help build our content strategy and help ingest and keep our audiences engaged. So just think about your own customer journey. Your phone broke and you want to see if you could fix it locally. Local iPhone repair shops is something you might Google. Google will then populate all these different websites on Google Maps and on Google Search. And then you'll go there. Maybe you put in Google X, iPhone X, right? That's a keyword. And so you want to make sure for your own company what keywords you're using. So for Brandon, he has a TutorD distance learning platform with the mission of transforming academic experiences for all parties. So if I'm an academic and I'm looking for the best distance learning platform, what are the keywords that I'm using? And did Brandon include those keywords on the website, right? So that's something we definitely want to know. And by understanding who our audience is and how they found us, it's going to better help us understand which channels are the best channels for us to engage with them. So let's talk about engagement questions. What happens once they found you online? How do you engage with them? Do you do a push notification? Give us your email to join our newsletter, or are you providing value to them? What do I mean by value? Here's a free promo code for testing out our product, our TutorD. We're having a webinar on how TutorD improves distance learning and it helps retain students' learning capabilities by 25%. That's giving me value. Is any of that in the website? And are you communicating that value in the website so that when the customer lands on it, they click on that value proposition, what's called a call to action? And that's extremely important because you want to make sure you're tracking all those little things. And you want to make sure how many pages does each prospective customer spend on each page. Now, the conversion question is always the most important piece, right? Because we're in the business of selling and promoting our product or service. And so we want to make sure we understand, hey, Robert, my marketing campaign is heavily influenced on social. I am investing 90% of my budget on social media, specifically Instagram. And, Instagram is telling me, I'm driving, 20% of sales is coming from Instagram. That's the channel I want to do it. And that's the channel that I'm kicking butt in. Why should I change? Great question. I'm not going to tell you to change. I'm going to tell you to go to Google Analytics and see which channel you're converting the highest in. That's great. That's, Instagram is converting for you, but let's look at the dashboard and let's see what rate people are converting in when it comes to emails, paid ads, organic search. And then you'll have a better assessment of which channel is the best channel for you to market in, which is exactly what you want to think about, right? What is the best channel? Where should I live? You don't have all the time in the world to. We want to start with our primary channel, saturate that channel, and then once that's saturated, go to the next channel, and so on and so forth. And a lot of it has to do with understanding first, which channel is the best. Second, are my calls to action actually converting? Very important. And third, which is offering the highest return on investment? You might be spending $1,000 for those 20% conversions when maybe organic is converting at a higher rate for you. Maybe investing a little bit more on SEO is more return for your investment than on paid ads. Sustainability questions is always important. How do you make it sticky? And are they coming back, right? Are you providing them the content they need to come back? For Christina, she's created a digital marketing social media for small business in SoCal, and Southern LA. How do we make sure they come back? Well, are you creating a blog post that answers their questions? Are you re-engaging with them in a way that makes their life a lot easier? Is there a place for them to land on in your website that informs them on the latest and greatest material that they can learn from? Very, very important there. And so many people overlook that, right? They're like, okay, well, yeah, they're engaging. Well, why would they come back if you're not providing any new material on your website? So you have to give prospective customers a reason to come back. So let's set up your reporting. And yeah, a great, Abdullah is a provider of optimizing mobile commerce for SMBs to increase sales. Omnichannel, what does omnichannel mean? It's the fancy word to say multiple channels. When I was in business school, that was a buzzword. Everyone used to say omnichannel, omnichannel. I was like, what does it really mean? It just means multiple channels that we're going to be approaching our customers to acquire them. What is our multi-channel approach, right? Yeah, I love it. And he creates a multiple channel, omni-channel dashboard for improving operations. And what does that mean? Operations can take the form of a lot of different things, which sounds like a very intuitive way to create some value for your small businesses. And then Jasmine says, are these questions anywhere for us to refer to? These questions as in the deck, or these questions as in the Google Analytics platform? Jasmine, if you could kind of help me understand that question, I'll be more than happy to address it. So here's the framework that I want you to work through. What's going on in real time in my website? Who's visiting my website? Are they actually buying from me? What are they doing when they land? And ultimately, is my website doing what I wanted to do, whatever that happens to be? So the first thing we want to see is what's happening in real time. For those of us who want to understand, like, why do I care what's going on in real time in my company, in my website? Well, let's say you run a big paid ad campaign and you start at 11 o'clock in the morning and you run until, let's say, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You want to see how much traffic is coming to your website because of that paid ad. Or you shot out 1,000 email campaign. You want to see how many people actually clicked and went to your website. Or even better, let's say you got some press and they interviewed on the ABC or CBS, and CBS told you at 5 o'clock, we're going to air your piece. You want to know how many people are coming to your website at that time. Now, what else can you do? Well, there's a lot of bots now that you can leverage for free on your website. So if you know there's going to be a big push at this time and you want people to take action, you might create a bot there so that when they land, that bot could communicate to those prospective customers that are landing on your website. The other things is just to understand if promotions are working or not working. Yeah, so the Jasmine asked us a great question. Are these questions anywhere to be found on the presentation? And the answer is no. I mean, the answer on Google Analytics, Google's giving you the framework by formatting these questions for you to understand how to ask the right questions. So, and we're walking, yeah, perfect. And we're walking through that as we speak. Okay, who's visiting an audience, right? Very important to understand this. We want to make sure we take actions. Remember, our folks thought it was 35 to 45. They were wrong. It's actually 25 to 34. They thought it was male-centric. It's actually female-centric, right? Oops. They didn't get it right. So how does this affect them as a marketing agency or a marketing team? Well, if they're having individuals that look between the ages of 35 and 44, does that really speak to their main audience? No, it doesn't. So maybe their creatives are off. The other thing is it overly male as opposed to female, and they thought it was female as opposed to male, which tells us maybe they should create creatives, right? Creatives like imaging and pictures and videos that speak to that audience, speak to that particular demographic. So I'll give you a very concrete example. Have any of us ever seen any commercials with Jaguar, with BMW, with Mercedes Benz, and an 18-year-old is driving it? Right? Never is going to happen. Why? Because the 18-year-old does not have the income to afford a $30, $40, $50,000 car. Right now, who knows with GameStop, that might have changed. But yeah, we definitely don't know if they can afford it. So a better use of that money for advertising is to show individuals who are a little bit older, right? And you could just think through all the different commercials that you might be seeing, especially, I'm not going to use the example, I'm just going to refer to it, of health examples for older gentlemen that might have issues. Like, are they showing younger kids or are you showing older gentlemen with that health tool, right? They're showing older gentlemen because that demographic is the ones who are having those issues. This is what the data can give you. It can give you that insight to say, this is who my market audience is, this is the age range, and this is where they're coming from, right? Very important to realize. We want to make sure we're investing our time and energy and thereby our resources and financial resources by marketing in the right channel. So here, 70%, 60, almost 60% of all customer acquisition for the Google merchandise store is coming organically. And then it breaks down the rest of the way, right? Direct, referral, social. And so as a customer, you're finding them by Googling Google Merchant Store. What should Google marketing team be doing? Improving their SEO, right? To make sure you drive even more conversion on that channel. And the next channel is direct. They're actually typing the company name onto the URL, and referral. What is referral? It's a third-party website referring you. So let's say, for example, Grid 110, you guys are graduating cohort, for example. They list your restaurant, your marketing agency, your platform on their website, and people find it on that website, click on it, and it sends them to your website. That's referral. So that's good to know. You'll start realizing, wow, maybe I should think through a referral campaign, a third-party campaign that I reach out to and say, hey guys, we're natural partners. Would you mind promoting my company on your website, on your email, because we're just naturally related? And that could drive a lot of traffic. I've seen it happen before 100 times when it comes to the movie and entertainment industry, where you have a restaurant and you have a business journal or a entertainment journal collaborate so that they could drive traffic to their individual websites. Now, we want to also understand what the prospective customer is doing once they land on your page. So here it's going to tell you exactly, visualize a journey that the customer took to fall onto your website. This is very helpful because this gives you what are called touch points. It helps you understand how many times did you actually touch the customer, or how many times did the customer actually get touched before it landed on your website. Very important to make sure you completely understand that customer journey so you could understand what changes you need to make to improve the conversion funnel. And so that, at the end of the day, is the money question. What is my website converting? Yes or no? And if it is, which channel is the best channel? Which channel is the worst channel? And which channel is the highest return on investment? And once you understand that question, you could optimize for that, and you could improve your sales by leveraging the heck out of the channel that converts at the highest rate. Hopefully that makes perfect sense to everyone. Now we're going to get a little bit in the weeds here. We're going to transition to more difficult questions, which is the tagging and the events. So the other question, very black and white, is new users versus returning users. That's going to help you make some really key insights. As you see here for the Google Merchant Store, new users make up the bulk. What is that? That's almost 80%, 90% of their traffic is new user traffic. So, they're not doing a good job of keeping the returning customers or having a reason for customers to return to their websites. Really important to figure out how you have more returning users. It's always easier to retain your customer than to acquire a new customer. So what did we learn? They were off on their numbers when it came to how old they were. They were off on what they thought was the primary driver for sales, and they were off with the type of audience they should have been targeting. And Google Analytics helped them fill those gaps so that could do better marketing and hopefully drive more sales. Okay, interpreting reports very quickly. Now we're getting into the weeds here. We'll spend about 15 minutes. Dimensions is the different characteristics of the data. It might be like, okay, what browser were they on? Why would that matter? Well, we know certain people on certain browsers might be more younger, tech savvy, higher income level. Landing page, you might create a landing page. Are they coming from that landing page? Did we create campaigns? Segments is subsets of those particular dimensions that have common attributes. That might be gender, race, location. Goals is exactly what we're going to talk about a little bit more in detail. That's one of your questions. How do we track what we want the customer to do when they land on our website? So thinking through, again, your SMART questions, and you think, okay, what exactly do I want my prospective customer to do as a result to gain that success? And so one of the things you can do is set up goals so that Google tracks every time. I'll give you a black and white example. Every time someone buys from you. So let's say you have a merchant store, you sell a product, they bring the product to your shopping cart, and they take it all the way to the end of the funnel and they buy. You want to track those purchases. So you set up a goal. And the event is different. So those are two distinctions that I want to make clear. The goal is that one that I mentioned for you as a business to business company, that goal might not be so clear cut. So maybe one of your goals is, hey, I want to make sure people download my white paper, download my case studies so they could know how amazing I am. That's a goal that I want to track. So you could set that as a goal. Another one might be filling out a form, a landing page lead capture form. That's a goal that I have. Fantastic. Events is different. Maybe you want to track a bunch of little things on one particular page of your website. Let's say on your homepage, you have 5 or 7 calls to action. You want to make sure you track all those events. So you use Google Tags to tag each one of those events in the event someone does that. Now, event can be an action like a click. Another action can be they spend more than a minute on that page. What does that tell you? If they spend more than a minute on the page, they're engaged, right? We want it and we want it now, right? That's our world that we live in. If you're not going to give me the information I need, I'm going to leave. So the longer they stay on your page, the more they actually value your information. So we talked about this, dimensions, different values. Secondary dimensions might be something more granular that makes you get in the weeds here. I'm giving you an example here of what a primary is, which is very black and white, like the state of Texas. Secondary would be No, give me the cities in the state of Texas. Get me into the weeds there. Let me see which cities are really my market audience. Really important here. And you could always find secondary dimensions by going to your Google dashboard, and within the piece of information that you're finding in the dimension piece, you click secondary and they'll do a bigger breakdown on which markets you should be going after. This is very important if you have a statewide or nationwide presence, and it gives you better information on where they're coming from, where the prospective customers coming from. Now, segments, you could always segment your audiences into different subgroups. This is really important. From my standpoint, the value here is remarketing. So let's say you segment your audience to isolate a certain group. So you only want to go after women because it's Women Empowerment Day. That's where we're going after. We're going to give away free consulting services to these individuals, and we only want to target women. Well, if there's enough traffic, you could retarget those individuals using Google's retargeting feature, group them as a feature, and then promote that through paid ads channels, so that only people with that IP address you're targeting using the segmentation feature here on Google Analytics. And so you could segment users, you could segment sessions, you could segment hits, right? All different ways you could segment the traffic that's coming into your audience to have a better assessment of who you want to go after, and you have your own business goals of why you would want to go after them. All right, so how do we create a segment, Rob? You're talking a lot. Show me the money. So you go within audiences, you go location, you click on segment, you click new segment, you name that segment, you define it, and you click save. That's it. It's not that difficult. Now, for some of us, this might, Robert, you're saying that, but once I get in there, I'm gonna get lost. Great point. I got lost as well. I still get lost because it's always doing updates. So you can definitely take a free course through Google Analytics Academy, and it doesn't cost you a dime, and they'll walk you through all these different changes that they're doing at your own speed. It's e-commerce, not e-commerce. It's a MOOC. It's a training system for businesses, for anyone actually. It doesn't matter if you aren't a business owner. You can just learn how to use Google Analytics. There's a beginner, intermediate, and advanced. It takes, I would say, about 10 to 12 hours to finish the courses, and then they give you a certificate, which is pretty cool. And if you're an agency, Google partners require you to get certain type of certification. The more certifications you have, the more swag and the more events you get invited to. So goals, we kind of talked about this. I'm not going to dwell too much, but what kind of goals might you be thinking through? And here they are: purchase, description, page views, clicks, and form submission. We all know that. It all goes back to your strategy. If you have the bandwidth, you can really get in the weeds here with developing goals specific to campaigns. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's say you have $1,000 that you want to use for your paid ads account. You can create a whole campaign around your paid ad strategy and focus only on that for these type of goals. So you can get really granular. Same thing with email marketing, same thing for referral marketing. You could do all that. It's really, really helpful. So how do you set up a goal? You go to your dashboard. On the very bottom, there's a gear. You click on that gear, which is your admin gear. Once you get there, you'll see a sub-segment where it says all website data. You're going to click on go, and you click on new goal, and then you set up the new goal, and they'll tell you if it's firing and off or not. And then on your home dashboard, it'll pop up again and saying, here are your goals. So here are some templated goals that you might automatically be formatted. Google's going to give you this format already. It's going to just set it up for you. It's like, here's the most typical goals that we have for your line of industry and your line of business. Or you can actually create a custom. And custom is a little bit a larger discussion because it takes a little bit more, and you have to set up tags for those custom goals. But we could talk about that later in another session if you want me to come back. Now, events. Events is what I mentioned a little bit earlier. The goal of your customer journey might be to buy, but I also want to track events of what people are doing when they land on my website, making sure I have 5 or 4 calls to action. I want to track all of them, Robert. I'm ambitious. I want to make sure I know exactly what's going on as many pages. Well, there's something called Google Tag Manager that you could set up, and that allows you to set up as many tags or quote unquote events on your website. And that's what I'm plugging in here. This is not as straightforward, I would say. It does take some time. There's some coding involved. But again, Google Analytics and Google Ads Analytics Academy provides you training on how to set this up. So you yourself can learn this, but it does take time and it does take some investment on your side. And so what does this help you do? You might do some events around product previews that you might have on your page that you want to see how many people are engaged. You want to track video engagement that you might set up and embed on your website. Like, I want to see how many people are viewing my videos. You want to track tracking errors on your form. A bunch of different ways you could do so. The events, it's up to your discretion. You could do as many events as many pages as you want. So let's say your website's 20 pages. You create events for all 20 pages. And so that's the distinction between events and goals. Goals is like, what do I want my customer to finally do that's going to drive an end result that I'm looking for? The other one is events. What do I want my customer to do along that journey? So I could see where he falls off or where she falls off. All right, so some of you guys mentioned, how do I connect Google Analytics to Google Studios? Very, very, very easy. All you need to do is have a Gmail account. You open up your Google Studios and it's going to have integration piece, and you click on Google Studios and you click on the Google Analytics platform, because some of us, an agency will have a lot of Google Analytics platforms that they're managing. But for you, you should only have one, maybe two. Maybe you created one when you were in college. Now you have another one, perfectly fine. It's all attached to your Gmail. So once you go into Google Studios, it's going to say, would you like to integrate? You say yes, you integrate with the Google Analytics, and then it's going to have a drop-down menu of that asset, they call it, Google calls it property, that website property. And you're going to click on your website property and it's going to naturally integrate it with Google Studios. That is it. It's not that difficult because both properties are owned by Google. You could also integrate with Google Search Console, which I highly recommend. Google Search Console, we didn't touch on in this webinar, but it's in essence the back end of the Google search algorithm, and it tells you all the different backend links that you have. They used to even give you a ranking for your page. What does that mean, Rob? What does ranking mean? It means they would tell you, are you on the first page of Google, second page of Google, third page of Google, fourth page of Google? And they'll tell you that. They're like, hey, you're on the fourth page of Google. You're not doing a good job. You want to get on the first page of Google. So now it doesn't tell you the page. I'll say something along the lines of, you need to improve because you're 45th query option, which is not good, right? You want to be first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And then Google Ads, obviously, Google Ads has a lot of data sets and data to collect, but if you integrate with Google Analytics, it's even more data that you have, you're able to connect with. And if you're an agency, for some of us here in the chat, I see we're agencies, you definitely want to connect that agency, Google Analytics with Google Ads so that you have even more information. Why link Google Analytics? I kind of just walked through that already. Very important, and it takes you a few seconds. So how do you link, Rob? Okay, you go to settings, and under settings, you go to the home page. On the very bottom left, there's a little gear. You click on the little gear, and then it pops up. You have your property name. You click on the property name, and it has where you have your tracking ID. They're going to have all products. You click on all products. It's going to have a drop-down menu of all these different pieces of the puzzle. Google Analytics, Google Ads is going to be there. The lady earlier on in the beginning of the session that asked about Google AdSense, this is how you connect your website with Google AdSense. And I'll address that question in the next few minutes. And I'll address what Google AdSense is, for those of us who don't know what Google AdSense is. Okay, just to quickly recap, a lot of potential here, guys. I went through a lot. This is 2 Google Analytics webinars converted into 1. Very straightforward. Outline your goals, ask the right question, leverage the right tool to make sure you measure the goals that you're trying to measure on Google Analytics. We have some apps that if you guys want, we could download Google Primer app, which is a fantastic free app that gives you mini lessons on anything and everything under the sun for those of us who just like learning and like information, how to set up a briefing, how to set up operationally, what are certain tools that you use for paid ads, what is a call to action, just a lot of cool little vignette lessons that you can learn on the go. We have a bunch of free content online. As you guys know, you go to Google On Demand and learn about how to reach customers using Google Tools, Google Analytics, Google Ads for free. For more information on this, feel free to go to growwithgoogle.com. And with that, I'd love to thank you for your time. I'm going to ask for two things here. The first one is I am going to ask you to rate me, because all data is good data. Even if you guys say, hey, Rob, never come back, you're terrible at presenting, we don't want to hear from you. I definitely want to hear from you. Google definitely wants to hear from you, wants to make sure that if you found this presentation of value. And then I would be remiss to not plug in a future workshop that I'm having this Saturday on YouTube. So the world's second largest search engine happens to be YouTube. If you're interested in that, feel free to go to YouTube for that information. And I think that's it. I think I can now answer Q&A questions from anyone and see how I could be of assistance. All right, good audience.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that presentation. Quick question, because I've been receiving this from a couple of founders in my private DMs, but are you able to share the presentation afterwards?
I could PDF and send it to you guys, yes.
Yeah, you can just email it to me and then I'll share it out with everyone. That's okay. And I did record the session today, so if it was a little bit too fast-paced for you, don't worry, I will email it out to you as well, and then you just can rewatch it at your own time as well. But yeah, we have about 10 minutes left. If you have any follow-up questions or specific questions you want to dig deeper, feel free to put them in the chat and then we can address them.
No kidding. I did such an amazing job. No one has questions. That is not true. So I want to go back and answer some questions that the person had about Google AdSense. I think now is the appropriate time. So what is Google AdSense? Google AdSense is, let's say you're a content creator and you have a website, or most of it's for publishing. So let's say you run a local news outlet, magazine, online store, and you're putting a ton of content out there, right? And there's a lot of traffic coming into your website. Well, Google's going to reach out to you and say, hey, guy, or madam, or gentleman, we want to monetize your traffic. We'll give you money if you allow us to run ads as banner ads on your website. And they'll give you anywhere from a few cents to a percentage of a cent per impression, which just means the prospective customer saw the ad. The second piece is per click. And so a lot of third-party websites, you name it, anything that drives traffic, like Reddit is a perfect example. CNN is another perfect example. They're monetizing their traffic by having people allowing Google to run ads on their website. So you can definitely do that using Google AdSense. Yeah. And she was asking why wasn't it connected? Just to, and I don't really know why, unfortunately. That's a little bit more of a back-end question. You can optimize Google AdSense. You can literally optimize the ads that you allow to be ran on your website, which is freaking fantastic. What do I mean by that? I mean, you can tell Google, I only want banner ads, I only want display ads, I only want video ads. And the reason you would do that is because certain types of ads are going to engage more audience members and they're going to drive more clicks, and thereby increasing your revenue stream. I have my own agency, and we used to manage accounts prior to COVID. I mean, they were making $4,000 or $5,000 a month just on that ad traffic. Very cool. Karen asked, just to clarify, I connected to Google Analytics, but my site was not approved for Google AdSense, but didn't say, wait, great. I mean, Karen, I'm sorry, that happens a lot. And you could review the reasons why I'm sure they gave you a link to see the different reasons why you wouldn't be approved. And most of the time, it's because of the type of content you have on your website, 90.99% of the time. So they might find something that's offensive, or you could think about the reasons why. I'm sure you're going to say that's not true. That's not on the website. You could get it revisited, but that's the majority why they might reject certain websites, because Google doesn't want to be part. Karen, if you email me, let me put that email down. Um, and then I'll send you the link. And guys, and Elizabeth, if you allow me to make this pitch, if you guys do want the PDF, my one requirement is, because nothing is for free, right? Quid pro quo, we're doing cost of action, is that you provide feedback. So feedback in the way of a survey, or feedback in the way of an email. Hey, Robert, I found this session terrible. I found this session great. Why is that important? Because we want to go back to our team, our Google team, and say, team, here's what people are saying about your presentation. Here's what people are saying about your presenter. It's really important for us to humanize that piece. So if you do want the PDF, Elizabeth, let's give people the PDF who gives us feedback. Feedback is priceless. It allows us to iterate in our process, as you guys know, as entrepreneurs. And that's what it's all about. You're my customer in a sense. I want to hear back from you to see what worked and what didn't work and what we could do better.
Yeah, sure thing. I'll send out an email to people with the survey link that you send out, and I'm able to see on my end like who filled it out, who submitted it, or who actually clicked on it. And then for those, I'll send out the PDF, the presentation, if that works. And
Beautiful.
yeah, we had a couple of other questions. So Natalia asked, you mentioned the universal option. How do we switch?
Yes. If Let me see if I could share my screen. Uh, y- you would go. Let me see if let me walk through this. Nope, that's not it. Yeah. Okay. So you log in. Where's Google Analytics? Not there. So if you go down to admin and there's a property, it'll give you a drop down option. See, this is the new one that they created, and you'll be able to toggle between the two. So you go under properties. See, this is the universal analytics, and this is the new one that they just created. So go into your analytics, go down to the gear, go to your properties, and switch it. Hopefully, when you created it, you created the universal analytics, not the new one that just came out. So that's the best answer I got for you.
And then we have another question that says, how about practical do's and don'ts?
Or Natalia. Do's and don'ts. It's case specific, right? I don't think there's a do's and don'ts for Google Analytics. It's more like set it up. All traffic is good traffic. You learn so much. You could really geek out on the amount of data that's coming in. But there's no real don'ts. In that it's aggregating data to your of your website. So you would have to kind of tell me, hey, Robert, I have an X type of company. What should I be looking for? Like, so what I always do, a definite do, is you want to go and you want to benchmark. Like, Google gives you a bunch of benchmarks for you yourself. You want to go into your industry. I know we all have amazing companies here, but you want to say, okay, what's the average click-through rate for businesses within my industry? What is the conversion rate for people within my industry? What is the amount of traffic that I should be getting? And so what you start doing is you start seeing where you're at and where you need to be. And that is really great. Like, and then what you start thinking as a marketer is like, what is the data telling me that's not leading to conversion? Why am I not converting? And so 90% of the time, guys, it's the content. customer experience and content, which is part of the customer UX UI. In other words, user experience is like, did you create a clear-cut journey for that prospective customer? And there's not one customer, there's like two, three, four, five customers. So most of the time that I see on websites is you didn't really think through your customer journey very well, or you just gave a customer journey for everyone. And remember, you yourself as a consumer view yourself as a unique individual snowflake. I do. I will be the first one to admit I want my own unique journey. I want you to speak to me like an individual. We are individuals. And when you speak to them as a big audience, they don't like it. I don't like it. I'm like, you're not really talking to me. You're talking to someone else. I'm going to find someone that speaks to my particular needs and answers my specific needs in a way that is seamless. And so what does that mean on your website? Well, for example, let's say I want to hire out a videographer, right? So I want specific videographer that's really good on social media channels. So if I land on your website for a videographer and you have a bunch of content on weddings, am I your target market? No, I'm not. But if I find Twitter videos, TikTok videos, Instagram videos, YouTube videos, now I'm like, wow, this person really gets it. He's really speaking to the need that I have as a marketing agency that needs to hire out for that position, right? And so that's what you have to do. So how would he do it? Let's say that the videographer does weddings, but also does that. Well, you need a better customer experience. And how do you do that? By signposting and signaling on your website, social media videos on the very top left, um, family life event videos, right? And so now as a customer, I'm differentiating myself and choosing the customer journey that best fits my need. So that's going to really help you on analytics.